I'm Alex. I'm 28 years old, and my own parents tried to send me to prison to protect my golden child brother after he stole and crashed my car while driving drunk. Before I tell you how that single night ended with my father's business empire on the brink of collapse and my brother facing a judge, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. It's always cool to see how far these stories travel. It's funny, the things you remember. It's not the screaming or the threats that stick with you the most. It's the quiet moments, the silences that say everything. For me, that moment is right now, sitting here at my kitchen table, staring at a piece of official-looking mail. The paper is thick, creamy, with a formal letterhead from the county courthouse. It's a subpoena, a legal order for me to appear as a witness in the case against my own father. My girlfriend, Jenny, put her hand on my shoulder a minute ago. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. Her touch is the only warmth in the room, which suddenly feels cold despite the afternoon sun streaming through the window. I just nodded, unable to form the words. Yeah, it's just paper. But it's not, is it? It's never just paper. This single sheet is the culmination of a lifetime of being told I was second best, that my feelings didn't matter, that my purpose was to clean up the messes my older brother, Ryan, left in his wake. My whole life, I was the shock absorber for his recklessness. My dad, Richard, he's a big deal in our town. Richard Thompson Construction. His name is synonymous with success, with power. He's the kind of man who commands a room just by walking into it. Loud, confident, and always in control. My mom, Linda, is the softer side of that steel coin. A high school teacher, respected and loved. The kind of woman who can make you feel guilty with just a sigh and a disappointed shake of her head. And then there's Ryan, my brother, only a year older than me, but he might as well have been born with a crown on his head. He was the athlete, the charmer, the one who could do no wrong, even when everything he did was wrong. This whole story, this whole mess that brought this subpoena to my table, it's about a car. A 1999 Ford Crown Victoria. An old police cruiser. It might seem like a strange thing to love, but that car was my freedom. It was the first thing in my life that was truly 100% mine. A gift from the only person in my family who ever really saw me. My Uncle Jack. And they couldn't stand it. They couldn't stand that I had something Ryan didn't, something he couldn't just take. So he took it anyway. And in doing so, he lit a fuse that had been simmering for 28 years. My parents thought they could smother it just like they always did. They thought money, power, and a little emotional blackmail could make it all go away. But they forgot one thing. They forgot what I learned a long time ago, a lesson that's about to cost them everything. Paper doesn't forget, and it doesn't know how to lie. To understand why I didn't just roll over like I was supposed to, you have to understand what it was like growing up in my house. On the outside, it was the American dream. A big, two-story house in a nice suburban neighborhood. A manicured lawn, 2 cars in the driveway. My dad's construction business was taking off, and my mom was a beloved English teacher at the local high school. We looked perfect, but inside those walls, there was a quiet poison that dripped into everything. That poison was favoritism. I remember being maybe 8 years old. For my birthday, I got this amazing Lego spaceship. It was the biggest set I'd ever had, over 1,000 pieces. I spent the entire weekend locked in my room, following the instructions perfectly. When it was done, it was my masterpiece. I put it on the highest shelf in my room. A few days later, I came home from school to find it in pieces on my floor. Ryan, who was 9, stood over the wreckage, holding the little astronaut figure. It looked boring just sitting there, he shrugged, like he was explaining the weather. Tears streamed down my face. I ran downstairs to my mom, who was grading papers in the kitchen. "Mom, Ryan broke my spaceship." She sighed, that long, tired sigh she reserved just for me. She didn't even look up from the stack of essays. "Alex, you know how your brother is. He has a lot of energy. It's just a toy. You can rebuild it." But it took me forever. He did it on purpose. Just then, my dad walked in, his work boots thudding on the linoleum. He saw my face, then looked toward the stairs. "What's all the crying about?" "Ryan smashed my Lego ship," I wailed. My dad looked at me, and his expression hardened. And what did you do to provoke him? Nothing. It was on my shelf. Don't lie to me, son, he said, his voice dropping to that low, dangerous tone. Ryan wouldn't just do that for no reason. You probably wouldn't let him play with it. You need to learn to share. That was the moment. The moment my 8-year-old brain understood the rules of the game. Rule number 1. Ryan is never wrong. Rule number 2. If Ryan does something wrong, it's Alex's fault. It wasn't just toys. It was everything. When I was in 5th grade, we had a science fair. I worked for weeks on a model volcano with baking soda and vinegar, even building a little papier-mâché village at the base. It was a classic project, but I did it well. Ryan, a 6th grader, forgot about his project until the night before. He slapped together a few rocks from the garden on a piece of cardboard and called it types of rocks. At the fair, my volcano erupted perfectly. The crowd of parents oohed and awed. Ryan stood next to his cardboard and pointed at rocks. When the awards were announced, neither of us won a ribbon. On the way home, my dad clapped Ryan on the back. Don't worry about it, champ. Science fairs are for nerds anyway. You've got real talent on the football field. He then turned to me in the rearview mirror. Maybe if you spent less time playing with vinegar and more time practicing, you'd be a starter too, Alex. My volcano was forgotten. My effort was invisible. The ultimate lesson in Thompson family justice came when I was 17. I'd had my driver's license for 6 months. I was meticulous. I followed every rule. One evening, I was backing my dad's prized pickup truck into our narrow driveway. I misjudged by an inch and the rubber of the bumper just barely kissed the brick siding of the garage. It left a tiny, black smudge on the brick and a faint scratch on the plastic bumper. One you could only see if the light hit it just right. My heart pounded. I went inside and immediately confessed to my dad. Dad, I am so sorry. I was backing up and I just tapped the garage. There's a tiny scratch on the truck's bumper. He stormed outside, inspected the scratch like a crime scene investigator, and then his face turned thunderous. A tiny scratch? A tiny scratch? Do you have any idea how much this truck costs? This is about respect, Alex. Respect for other people's property. You clearly don't have any. My punishment was swift and severe. Driving privileges revoked for a month. And every single Saturday for that month, I had to hand wash and wax his truck, from top to bottom, to learn my lesson. 6 months earlier, Ryan, who had just gotten his license, took my mom's sedan to a party. He tried to parallel park and scraped the entire passenger side along a metal pole, leaving a hideous, 20-foot-long gash in the paint. He came home, drunk, and didn't even mention it. My mom discovered it the next morning. My dad's reaction? He walked outside, saw the damage, and let out a short laugh. He slung his arm around a hungover Ryan's shoulders. Well, that's one way to learn your limits, son. Let's call the body shop. Every man has a few bumps and scrapes when he's learning the ropes. Bumps and scrapes. My tiny scratch was a lesson in respect. His giant gash was a rite of passage. The message was clear. I was held to a standard of perfection, while Ryan was graded on a curve so generous it was practically a circle. My only escape was my Uncle Jack, my mom's brother. He was a cop, a detective, and he had a built-in lie detector that went off every time he was around my family. He never said anything directly, but he saw it. He'd show up to family dinners, and while everyone was fawning over Ryan's latest football trophy, he'd sit with me and ask about my drafting class or the computer I was building. He spoke to me like I was a person, not a problem. The day I turned 18, I had my bags packed. I had a part-time job at a grocery store, and I'd saved up enough for a security deposit on a crappy apartment. Uncle Jack showed up at the house. "What's all this?" he asked, nodding at my duffel bags. "I'm moving out," I said, not meeting his eyes. My mom was in the background, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "I don't know why you're doing this, Alex. You're tearing this family apart." Uncle Jack ignored her. He looked at me. "You got a place?" "Sort of." I mumbled. "No, you don't," he said, his voice firm. "You're coming to stay with me. The spare room is empty." You can stay as long as you need. No rent. Just help out around the house and finish school. He looked over at my mom. Linda, the boy needs some space. It's for the best. That was the day my life really started. Living with Uncle Jack was like breathing fresh air after being trapped in a smoke-filled room. The rules were simple. Be honest, clean up after yourself, and work hard. There were no mind games, no hidden meanings. He taught me how to change the oil in his old truck, how to fix a leaky faucet, how to budget my money. He taught me how to be a man, something my own father, for all his bluster, had never bothered to do. On my 21st birthday, Uncle Jack threw a small barbecue in his backyard. After we ate, he tossed me a set of keys. Happy birthday, kid. I looked at the keys, then at the street, where a big, boxy sedan was parked. A 1999 Ford Crown Victoria. It was white, with little holes on the roof where the light bar used to be. Is that a cop car? I asked. He grinned. My first patrol car. They were decommissioning it. I bought it for a song. Engine's solid. It's not pretty, but it's reliable. And it's yours. He put a hand on my shoulder. Thing about this car, Alex, he said, his voice serious. It's not just iron and steel. It represents something. It represents self-respect. Don't ever let anyone take that from you. I was speechless. I walked up to the car, running my hand over the hood. It wasn't just a car. It was a shield. It was a statement. It was everything my family's world of flashy new BMWs and leased Lexuses wasn't. It was real, it was earned, and it was mine. That car became my pride and joy. I spent weekends changing the oil, waxing it, hunting for original parts online. It represented my independence, my escape. Meanwhile, Ryan was living the high life. My dad had given him a job at the construction company, a title that sounded important, and a brand new pickup truck. He crashed it within a year. Then came a sports car. He got a DUI in that one, but my dad's high-priced lawyer got it pleaded down to a reckless driving charge. The car was impounded and eventually sold. The third car was a luxury sedan. He wrapped that one around a telephone pole while texting. 3 cars in 5 years. And every single time, my parents were there to bail him out, to buy him a new one, to tell him it was just a string of bad luck. I started dating Jenny around that time. We worked together at an architectural firm where I was a junior draftsman. She was smart, funny, and had this no-nonsense attitude that I loved. She was putting herself through law school at night, and she had zero patience for entitled behavior. The first time she met my family was at a Sunday dinner. She was polite, but on the drive home, she was quiet for a long time. Then she just said, "Wow. Wow good or wow bad?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Your brother," she said, shaking her head. "He talked about himself for 45 minutes straight without asking you a single question. And your parents just look at him like he's the son. I don't know how you survived that." "Uncle Jack," I said. "And now you." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Well, you survived. You got out. That's all that matters." Her saying that meant more to me than she could ever know. She saw me, the real me, not the screw-up, not the second-place son. Just Alex. Life was good. I had a job I loved, a girl I adored, and a car that, to me, was the best car in the world. I thought I had finally built a wall high enough that the toxicity from my family couldn't climb over it. I was wrong. The past doesn't stay in the past. It just waits for an opportunity to kick down your door. And that opportunity came in the form of a phone call from my brother, Ryan. A phone call that would set everything in motion. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my desk, trying to finalize a set of blueprints for a new housing development. My phone buzzed, and Ryan's name flashed on the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail. A call from Ryan usually meant he needed something. I sighed and answered. "Hello, Alex. Hey, buddy, how's it going?" The fake cheerfulness in his voice was a red flag. It was the same voice he used when he was about to ask for money or to borrow something he would never return. "I'm fine, Ryan. At work. What's up?" I kept my tone neutral, not wanting to give him any opening. "So, funny story," he began, and my stomach tightened. His funny stories were never funny for anyone but him. Remember my car? The sedan? The one you wrapped around a pole? Yeah, I remember. He laughed. A sharp, humorless sound. That's the one. Well, the insurance payout is taking forever. And Dad's being a real hard-ass about getting me a new company car until my driving record is clean. Can you believe that? After all I do for the company. Sounds reasonable to me, I said, my voice flat. I pictured him working, which usually meant showing up late, taking a long lunch, and leaving early. Yeah, whatever. Look, I need a favor. A big one. I need to borrow your car. I actually laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was a short, sharp bark of disbelief. My car? The Crown Vic? Absolutely not. His friendly tone vanished instantly. The real Ryan emerged. What do you mean, no? I need it for work. I have to visit job sites. That sounds like a you problem, Ryan. Not a me problem. You're a grown man. Rent a car. Take an Uber. I don't care. But you're not touching my car. You're being a real jerk. You know that? He snapped. It's just a car. A piece of junk. You barely even drive it. I drive it every day. And it's my car. The one I paid for. The one I take care of. You've been through 3 cars that Dad bought you. You treat them like they're disposable toys. The answer is no. You're so selfish. It's always about you, isn't it? You're just sitting on that piece of junk to spite me, he yelled. And then the line went dead. I put the phone down, my hand shaking slightly. It was the same old script. Ryan wants something. I say no. I become the bad guy. I tried to push it out of my mind and get back to work. But 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. Alex, honey, it's Mom. Her voice was laced with that weary, disappointed tone she had perfected over the years. It was a voice that could make you feel guilty for breathing. I just spoke to your brother. He's very upset. I'm sure he is, I said, rubbing my temples. He just needs a little help, sweetie. His father is being so hard on him. He needs a car to do his job, to be a responsible adult. Mom, he's 29. A responsible adult doesn't crash 3 cars and then demand someone else's. This isn't helping him. It's enabling him. It's what you've always done. Oh, Alex, don't be so dramatic. Why must you use such harsh language? It's not about the money. It's about family helping family. We're supposed to support each other. Why do you always have to make things so difficult? Just let him use the car for a few weeks until this all gets sorted out. Be the bigger person. I have been the bigger person my entire life, I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts to keep it calm. My whole childhood was about being the bigger person. I'm done. The answer is still no. I hung up before she could lay on another layer of guilt. Then, of course, came the final boss. 10 minutes later, my dad's name lit up the screen. Don't you hang up on me, he barked as soon as I answered. There was no pretense, no fake friendliness. You give your brother the keys to that damn car. No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. What did you just say to me? His voice was a low growl. I said no. It's my car. I'm not giving it to him. It's a piece of junk, Alex. An embarrassment. I see you driving that thing around town and it makes my stomach turn. Your brother, an executive in my company, needs transportation, and you're hoarding that piece of crap out of spite. He's not an executive, Dad. He's your son with a fancy title. And I'm not hoarding it. I'm using it. After everything I've done for you, given you, this is how you repay me? By being a selfish little brat? I put a roof over your head for 18 years. Everything you've given me? You haven't given me a dime since I was 18. Uncle Jack is the one who took me in. Uncle Jack is the one who gave me that car. You've given me nothing but grief. The line went silent for a moment. Then his voice came back, cold as ice. You listen to me. You are part of this family, and you will act like it. If you don't help your brother, you can consider yourself written out of the will. You will get nothing. You'll be completely on your own. I've been on my own for 10 years, I said, a strange sense of calm washing over me. I'm fine with that. And I hung up. That night, I told Jenny what happened. She listened patiently, then took my hand. "Good for you," she said softly. "You did the right thing. Don't let them bully you." She paused, a thoughtful look on her face. "You know, Alex, you should probably document this. Just in case." "Document what?" "The phone calls. The threats. Just write it down. Time, date, what was said. Is what we learn in my contracts class. A paper trail is always a good idea when people are unreasonable." It sounded a little paranoid, but I trusted her judgment. So I opened a new note on my computer and wrote everything down. A week went by. I didn't hear from any of them. I started to think maybe, just maybe, they had finally gotten the message. Then one evening, I left work and walked to the parking garage. I got to the spot where I always parked my Crown Vic. And it was empty. My first thought was that it had been stolen. I felt a surge of panic. I was about to call the police when I saw it. A small, greasy piece of paper tucked under the tire of the car next to my spot. It was a receipt from a gas station near my parents' house. And on the back, in my brother's sloppy handwriting, were 2 words, "Borrowed it." The rage that filled me was cold and sharp. This was a new low. He hadn't just asked or demanded. He had stolen it. How did he even get in? I called my mother first. "Where is he?" I demanded. "Alex? What's wrong?" she asked, her voice a little shaky. "Don't play dumb, Mom. Ryan stole my car. Where is he?" "Oh dear. He didn't steal it, honey. He just borrowed it. He was desperate. He left you a note. He stole my car, and you knew about it. How did he get a key?" A long pause. "He found a spare," she mumbled. I knew there were no spare keys. I had the only 2 that came with the car. "You're lying. You helped him." "Alex, please." I hung up and called my dad. He answered on the first ring. "What?" "You tell Ryan he has 1 hour to get my car back to my apartment, or I'm reporting it stolen." "I'm not kidding." "You will do no such thing," he roared. "You'll embarrass this family. He'll bring it back when he's done with it." 1 hour, I said, and hung up. 45 minutes later, my Crown Vic screeched into the parking lot of my apartment building. Ryan got out, a smirk on his face, and tossed the keys on the ground in front of me. "Happy now, princess?" I looked inside the car. There were fast food wrappers on the passenger seat and the radio was blasting. He had driven it hard. "How did you get a key?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Bought it online," he said with a shrug. "Universal key for old Fords. It's not rocket science." He started to walk away. "This is the last time, Ryan," I called after him. "You ever touch my car again, and I swear you'll regret it." He just waved a hand over his shoulder without looking back. The next day, I took the car to Uncle Jack's house. I told him everything. He listened, his face grim. When I was done, he nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "This has gone far enough. This isn't borrowing. It's theft, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again." He popped the hood, and together we spent the afternoon installing a hidden GPS tracker and a kill switch. He showed me how to activate it from an app on my phone. If Ryan ever tried it again, I could shut the engine down remotely. As I was leaving, Jenny's advice from the week before echoed in my head. I drove to the local police precinct. I felt nervous, like I was the one doing something wrong. I walked up to the front desk and spoke to a tired-looking officer. I explained the situation carefully. "I don't want to press charges right now," I said, making sure my voice was steady. "I'm not trying to get my brother arrested. I just want to make a formal record of what happened, for my own protection." The officer nodded, understanding. "You want to file an information report?" "Yes, exactly." He typed it all up. "So, your brother, Ryan Thompson, took your vehicle, a 1999 Crown Victoria, license plate number, without your permission on this date. And you are stating you do not wish to pursue charges at this time." "That's correct," I said. He handed me a slip of paper with a case number on it. "Here you go. Keep this for your records." I folded that piece of paper and put it in my wallet. Felt heavier than it should have. I didn't know it then, but I had just armed myself. I had just created the one weapon my father's money and my mother's tears couldn't defeat. Paper trail. A fact. And it was waiting patiently for its moment to be used. The next few months were quiet. Eerily quiet. I didn't hear a word from my parents or Ryan. No angry calls, no guilt-trip voicemails. It was the kind of silence that feels less like peace and more like the air just before a tornado hits. I focused on my work, on my life with Jenny. We were even starting to talk about moving in together, looking at apartments in a neighborhood far from my parents' world. I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, my stand had worked, that they had finally understood I was no longer their doormat. Then came Christmas. Christmas in my family was always a command performance, hosted by my Aunt Patricia, my mom's sister. It was a house filled with forced smiles, simmering resentments, and way too much eggnog. I wanted to skip it, but Jenny, ever the pragmatist, said we should go. Show up, be polite, eat some ham, and leave early, she advised. It's better than dealing with the drama of not going. She was right. So we drove over in my Crown Vic, the car that had started it all. Parking was a nightmare, with cars lining the entire street. I found a spot a block away, under a street lamp. The moment we walked in, the familiar atmosphere washed over me. The smell of pine and roasting turkey mixed with my mom's cloying perfume. She greeted me with a hug that was a little too tight, a little too long. "Oh, Alex, I'm so glad you came," she whispered, as if I were a soldier returning from war. My dad just gave me a curt nod from across the room, a glass of whiskey in his hand, holding court with my uncles. He was in his element, the king in his castle. And there was Ryan. He was leaning against the fireplace, laughing loudly at something one of my cousins said. He looked over at me, and for a second his eyes met mine. There was no apology in them, no remorse, just a flicker of that old, arrogant entitlement. He raised his glass in a mock toast and turned away. I tried to relax. I made small talk. I ate the dry turkey, but I couldn't shake a feeling of dread. About an hour into the party, I saw Ryan talking to my cousin Ethan. Ethan was a bit of a troublemaker, the kind of guy who never really grew up. I saw him take a flask from his jacket pocket and pour a generous amount into Ryan's already full glass of eggnog. Ryan winked and took a big gulp. A little later, I saw Ryan on his phone. He wasn't laughing now. His face was tight, his voice a low, angry whisper. He was tucked away in a corner of the dining room, trying not to be overheard. I only caught a few snippets as I walked past. "I told you I don't have it. I'll get it to you tonight. I promise. Just give me a few hours." He hung up, his face pale and sweaty. He looked cornered. He looked desperate. My internal alarm bells started ringing, faintly at first, then louder. I made an excuse to Jenny and went to the front hall to grab my coat. I said I needed to get a portable charger from my car. My keys were in the right pocket of my heavy winter coat, which was buried under a dozen others in the guest room closet. I dug through the pile of coats, the scent of various perfumes and mothballs filling the small space. My fingers searched for the familiar worn leather of my jacket. I found it and my hand plunged into the pocket. It was empty. My heart didn't just sink. It plummeted. A cold dread washed over me. No, he wouldn't. Not here. Not tonight. I pulled out my phone, my hands suddenly clumsy. I opened the GPS tracking app Uncle Jack had installed. The little blue dot that was supposed to be my phone was right where I was standing. I swiped to the icon for my car. The screen loaded the map. A little red dot, representing my Crown Vic, was supposed to be parked just down the street. It wasn't. It was moving. It was already 3 blocks away, heading towards the interstate. I felt a strange, chilling calm descend over me. The panic was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. All the years of being pushed, of being ignored, of being wronged, coalesced into this one single moment of clarity. This was it, the final line. I walked back into the living room, a mask of casualness on my face. The party was in full swing. Laughter, Christmas carols on the stereo, the crackle of the fire. Perfect picture of a happy family. What a lie. I found Jenny. "We have to go," I said, my voice low. She saw the look on my face and didn't ask any questions. She just nodded, grabbing her purse. I didn't go to Uncle Jack. I didn't go to my dad. I walked out the front door, onto the cold porch, the sounds of the party fading behind me. I took a deep breath of the freezing night air and pulled out my phone again. I didn't call my parents. I didn't call Ryan. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice was calm and professional. My voice was just as calm. I'd like to report a vehicle theft in progress. Okay, sir. Can you tell me your name and location? My name is Alex Thompson. I'm at 125 Northwood Drive. My car, a 1999 white Ford Crown Victoria, has just been stolen. Did you see who took it, sir? Yes, I said, watching the red on my other phone's screen move steadily further away. I believe it was my brother, Ryan Thompson. I gave her the license plate number from memory. Then I added the most important part. This is the second time he's done this. I filed an information report last month. The case number is 715B. There was a pause on the other end, the sound of typing. Okay, Mr. Thompson, I see the report. Can you tell me where the vehicle is now? I looked at the tracker. The red dot was turning onto the on-ramp for I-95. The local news had been warning about it all day. A winter storm was moving in, and the roads were already getting icy. He's getting on the interstate, I said, and I have reason to believe he's been drinking. The operator's tone sharpened. Okay, sir. We are dispatching a unit immediately. Please stay on the line. I stood there in the cold, Jenny at my side, her hand on my arm. The sounds of my family's fake Christmas party seemed a world away. The game was over. I wasn't playing by their rules anymore. I was using a different set of rules now, the real ones, and the consequences were no longer mine to bear. The 10 minutes that followed felt like an eternity. Jenny and I stood on the sidewalk, the cold seeping through our coats. I kept my eyes glued to the GPS tracker on my phone. The red dot was moving fast down the interstate, way too fast for the conditions. They'll get him, Jenny said, her voice a firm, reassuring presence in the chaos of my thoughts. You did the right thing, Alex. My phone buzzed. It was my mom. I ignored it. It buzzed again. My dad. I ignored that one, too. The red dot on the map suddenly swerved, then stopped abruptly on the shoulder of the highway, about 5 miles away. He stopped, I said, my voice tight. Just then, my mom ran out of the front door, not even bothering with a coat. Alex, what's going on? Ryan just called, he said. He said the police are pulling him over. Did you do this? Her face was a mask of disbelief and horror. He stole my car, Mom, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. I called the police. It's that simple. My dad was right behind her, his face purple with rage. You what? You called the cops on your own brother? Are you insane? Before he could continue his tirade, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I answered it. Is this Mr. Alex Thompson? A calm, authoritative voice asked. Yes, it is. This is Officer Williams with the state police. We've recovered your vehicle on I-95. We have a suspect in custody. Your brother, Ryan Thompson. We ran the plates and it came up as a vehicle of interest linked to a prior theft report. Can you confirm you are the owner and did not give him permission to drive it tonight? My dad was shouting in the background. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. A family spat. My mom was sobbing. Please, Alex, don't ruin his life. I turned my back on them and spoke clearly into the phone. I can confirm. My name is Alex Thompson. I am the owner. He did not have my permission. He stole my keys from my coat at a family party. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. That clarifies things, Officer Williams said. There was a pause. Your brother appears to be heavily intoxicated. As he was being pulled over, he lost control on an icy patch and slid into a guardrail. The car has some front-end damage, but he is unharmed. Relief, sharp and unwelcome, mixed with the cold anger. He was okay. He was an idiot, a thief, a reckless danger to everyone on the road, but he was my brother, and he was okay. We're going to need you to come down to the scene to identify your vehicle and make a statement, the officer continued. And you'll need to arrange for a tow. I'm on my way, I said, and hung up. My dad grabbed my arm. You are not going down there and saying a word against him. This is a mistake. We'll tell them he had permission. I yanked my arm away, my voice hard as flint. No, no more lies. It's over. The drive to the scene was surreal. My parents, in their own car, were following close behind me and Jenny. The flashing blue and red lights were visible from a mile away. 2 patrol cars were parked behind my Crown Vic, which was nosed into the guardrail, its front bumper crumpled. Ryan was in the back of one of the patrol cars, his face pale and slack. Officer Williams, a tall man with kind eyes and a firm set, met me as I got out. He looked at me, then at my car. Mr. Thompson, thanks for coming. My parents rushed up, my mom already crying, my dad launching into his performance. Officer, thank God. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. My sons, they had a little argument, you know how brothers are. Officer Williams held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. He didn't even look at my father. He looked at me. Is this your father, Mr. Thompson? Yes, I said. And he's telling me this is a misunderstanding? The moment hung in the freezing air. This was the point of no return. My entire life, I had been trained to fold in this exact moment, to absorb the blame, to smooth things over. My mother was looking at me, her eyes pleading. My father was glaring, his jaw set, daring me to defy him. Ryan was just a shadow in the back of the police car. I took a breath. No, officer. It is not a misunderstanding. My brother stole my car keys from my pocket at a family party. He has a history of drinking and driving. I reported the vehicle stolen to prevent him from killing himself or someone else. I have a police report number from the last time he stole it, if you need it. Officer Williams nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He finally turned to my father. Sir, I think it's best if you let me handle this. He walked over to the patrol car where his partner was administering a breathalyzer test to Ryan. We could all see the result. Ryan slumped in his seat, his head in his hands. The officer cuffed him. As they walked him to the other patrol car, my dad exploded. This is on you, he screamed at me, his finger jabbing the air. You did this. You're trying to destroy this family. You're no son of mine. The officers paused, watching the scene unfold. My mother, completely broken, let out a wail. We should have stopped him years ago, Richard. I told you. The DUI in college, the accident last year. I can't keep covering for him. I can't. She was sobbing hysterically, confessing years of secrets right there on the side of a highway, in front of everyone. It was a complete and utter meltdown. The perfect family, shattering into a million pieces under the cold, flashing lights of reality. Officer Williams walked back over to me, his expression a mixture of pity and professionalism. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to need your full statement down at the station. As for your family, I'd suggest they go home. He looked pointedly at my father. Sir, your son has been arrested for grand theft auto, driving under the influence and resisting arrest. The best thing you can do for him right now is call a lawyer. My dad stared at him, speechless for the first time in his life. The power, the control, it had all just evaporated into the cold night air. His words meant nothing here. His money meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was the cold, hard truth. A truth that I, his second-best son, had finally dared to speak. The game was over, and I had won. Or maybe we had all just lost. The hours at the police station were a blur of fluorescent lights, bad coffee, and the sterile smell of disinfectant. I gave my statement methodically and calmly, detailing everything from the first theft to the 911 call. Uncle Jack showed up not as a cop, but as my uncle. He just sat with me, a silent, solid presence that anchored me in the storm. He didn't say, I told you so. He didn't have to. Ryan was processed. Because of the felony charge of grand theft auto, he wasn't getting out on bail that night. He was going to spend the weekend in the county jail until his arraignment on Monday. The reality of that seemed to hit my parents like a physical blow. My dad, after his initial outburst on the highway, had gone silent, his face a grim, stony mask. My mom had cried herself into a state of exhausted numbness. They hired a flashy lawyer who showed up in an expensive suit, smelling of cologne and confidence. But even he couldn't wave a magic wand and make the steel bars disappear. The drive home with Jenny was quiet. "You holding up?" she finally asked, as we pulled into my apartment complex. "I don't know what I feel," I admitted, and it was the truest thing I'd said all night. "It's like, I finally stood up for myself, but I don't feel good about it. I just feel empty." "That's because it's a tragedy, Alex," she said softly. "There are no winners in something like this." The next few weeks were a painful education in the legal system. The crumpled Crown Vic was towed to a local body shop run by a guy named Tony, a friend of Uncle Jack's. The estimate was steep. The front end was a mess. Ryan spent 3 days in jail before my dad could post the astronomical bail. I heard from Aunt Patricia that he came out looking like a ghost. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed fear. The first confrontation came about a week later. My mom called, her voice trembling. She asked if I could meet her for coffee. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She sat across from me in a quiet corner of Starbucks, wringing her hands. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. "Alex," she began, "the lawyer says the GTA charge is the most serious. He said if the car's owner, if you were to tell the district attorney that it was all a misunderstanding, that you were angry and overreacted, that he did, in fact, have permission, then that charge would likely be dropped." I stared at her, my coffee growing cold. After everything, she was still trying to rewrite reality. "He stole the car, Mom. He made a mistake," she insisted, her voice cracking. "A terrible, stupid mistake. But he's your brother. You can't let him go to prison. It would destroy him. Please, Alex, I'm begging you. I'm your mother. Don't do this to our family. Don't do this to me." Tears were streaming down her face, the weapon she had wielded against me my entire life. But for the first time, it had no effect. It was like watching a movie I'd seen 100 times before. I knew every line. "What you're asking me to do is lie to a district attorney," I said, my voice steady. "You're asking me to commit a crime to cover up his crimes. The same thing you admitted to doing on the highway. Has any of this taught you anything?" She just sobbed, shaking her head. "You're so cold. I don't know who you've become." "I'm the same person I've always been," I replied, standing up. "The only difference is, I'm not cleaning up his mess this time." I walked out, leaving her there with her tears. The final confrontation, the one I had been dreading, came a few weeks after that. My dad summoned me to the body shop. He wanted to settle things regarding the car repairs. I knew it wasn't about the car. I found him there, standing next to my wounded Crown Vic, with Tony, the shop owner, who was uncomfortably holding a clipboard. Tony was a big, gruff guy with grease under his fingernails, but he had honest eyes. He nodded at me when I walked in. My dad didn't waste time with pleasantries. "This is ridiculous," he said, gesturing at the car. "An old piece of junk. It's not worth what Tony here wants to fix it." "That's a fair estimate, Richard," Tony said, his voice firm. "Parts for these older models aren't easy to find." My dad ignored him and turned to me, his eyes blazing. He pulled out a thick checkbook, the kind used for business accounts. Richard Thompson Construction was printed at the top. "Fine," he snapped. He scribbled something on a check and ripped it out, shoving it at me. It was for $5,000, more than enough to cover the repairs. "Here, take it. And that's the end of this. You go to the DA, you tell them it was a family dispute, and we put this whole embarrassing episode behind us." I looked at the check, then at his face. The arrogance, the absolute certainty that money could fix anything, was still there. He hadn't learned a thing. I didn't take the check. "It's not about the money, Dad," I said quietly. "Then what is it about?" he roared, his voice echoing in the cavernous garage. "Revenge? You want to ruin your brother's life over a stupid car. It's about consequences." I said, my voice gaining strength. Something he's never had to face. And something you've never had to face. He took a step closer, his shadow falling over me. You have no idea what I've faced to build what I have. To give you and your ungrateful brother everything. I know you're trying to use money from your company to influence a witness in a felony case. I said, my voice ringing with a clarity that surprised even me. I know that's illegal. Tony, the shop owner, shifted his weight uncomfortably. Richard, maybe you two should take this outside. My dad's face went from red to a pale, mottled white. He looked at me, at Tony, and then back at the check in his hand. He had tried to use his ultimate weapon, his money, and it had failed. He was out of ammunition. He crumpled the check in his fist. You'll regret this, Alex. You're tearing this family to shreds. And when it's all just ashes, you'll be all alone. I promise you that. He stormed out, leaving a trail of silence in his wake. I stood there, looking at my broken car. He was wrong. I wasn't alone. And this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of his end. Because I still had my own weapon. The one he didn't see coming. That little slip of paper in my wallet. The case number. The fact. And I was about to upgrade it from a shield to a sword. The air in the body shop was thick with the smell of oil and unspoken tension. Tony, the owner, finally broke the silence. He let out a long, low whistle. Well, he said, shaking his head, I've seen some family drama in my day, but that takes the cake. I just nodded, feeling strangely calm. The storm had passed, and I was still standing. Can you just fix the car, Tony? I'll pay you in installments. Don't you worry about that right now, kid, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. We'll work it out. Your Uncle Jack's a good man. You're good people. That night, I sat down at my computer, my father's crumpled check still on my mind. He thought it was about the car. He thought it was about the money. He still didn't get it. I opened a new email. The recipient was the state's official contractor licensing board. Jenny, my brilliant, practical, part-time law student girlfriend, had told me about it. Every state has one. They regulate construction businesses, and they have strict codes of conduct. One of those codes usually involves not committing crimes or engaging in unethical behavior that could reflect badly on the profession. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I was polite, professional, and factual. I introduced myself and my father's company. I explained the ongoing criminal case involving my brother. And then I laid it all out. This afternoon, I wrote, Mr. Richard Thompson, in his capacity as owner of the company, met me at Tony's Auto Body. In front of a witness, Mr. Tony Gallo, he offered me a check drawn from his business account. This payment was explicitly conditional on me agreeing to change my testimony to the district attorney in an active felony investigation involving his son. He was, in effect, attempting to use corporate funds to bribe a witness. I attached a photo of the crumpled check, where the company name was clearly visible. I included Tony's name and business address as a witness. I concluded the email by stating that I felt this was a serious ethical breach, and that I was bringing it to their attention as a matter of public record. Before I hit send, I forwarded a copy to my dad's corporate lawyer, the same guy who handled his DUI cases. The subject line was simple, "For your records." Then I hit send. There was no explosion, no immediate fallout, just the quiet hum of my computer. But I knew I had just launched a torpedo into the hull of my father's carefully constructed empire. His power didn't come from his fists. It came from his reputation, his licenses, his ability to bid on lucrative state and city contracts. All of that was now in jeopardy. A week later, I got a call from the DA's office. They were offering Ryan a plea deal. If he pleaded guilty to the DUI and a lesser misdemeanor for the car theft, they would drop the felony GTA charge and the resisting arrest. It would mean no prison time, but it would come with a heavy price. 2 years of probation, a 1-year suspended license, a massive fine, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory attendance at a victim impact panel. I found out later from Uncle Jack what had happened behind the scenes. My dad's lawyer had received my email. He had immediately called my dad and, in no uncertain terms, told him that he was facing a catastrophic professional investigation that could ruin him. The attempted bribery was a far more serious threat to their livelihood than Ryan's car theft. The lawyer had advised my father to make this all go away, quietly and quickly. That meant accepting the DA's first offer for Ryan and not fighting it. My father, the man who always fought, who always won, had been forced to surrender. And that was the beginning of the real change. Ryan took the deal. His 200 hours of community service were spent cleaning graffiti off public buildings. He had to get a menial job at a warehouse to start paying off his fines and the repair bill for my car. He sent me a check every month for $100 with a simple, one-line note for the car. The biggest change, however, came from the victim impact panel. It was a mandatory part of his sentence. He had to sit in a room for 4 hours and listen to people whose lives had been shattered by drunk drivers. Mothers who had lost children. Husbands who had lost wives. People in wheelchairs who would never walk again. He told my Aunt Patricia about it later. He said he sat there, listening to a woman describe how she had to identify her 17-year-old son at the morgue, and for the first time in his life, he saw himself not as the victim of a bad night, but as the potential cause of someone else's unending nightmare. He said he threw up in the bathroom during the break and cried for the first time since he was a little kid. That was his rock bottom. Not the jail cell, but the reflection of what he could have become in the tear-filled eyes of a grieving mother. He started going to AA meetings. He got a sponsor. He kept working at the warehouse, even after his community service was done. My father was forced to attend anger management classes. His company was slapped with a heavy fine by the licensing board and put on a 2-year probation of its own. He had to sell off some investment properties to cover the legal fees and the fines. The swagger was gone. He seemed smaller, quieter. My mom started going to therapy. She was trying to understand her own role in the family's dysfunction, her enabling behavior. She and my dad were still together, but something had irrevocably broken between them. A year passed. A year of quiet, of distance, of slow, painful rebuilding. I moved in with Jenny, and we got engaged. I was promoted to a senior draftsman at my firm. My life was moving forward on my own terms. My Crown Vic was fully repaired, looking better than ever. It was more than a car now. It was a monument to a battle I had won. The final piece fell into place on a rainy Saturday morning, almost exactly a year after the Christmas party. I was at a coffee shop, waiting for Jenny, when the door opened and Ryan walked in. He saw me and froze. He looked different, thinner maybe. The arrogance in his posture was gone, replaced by a quiet stillness. He hesitated, then walked over to my table. "Hey, Alex," he said. His voice was quiet. "Hey, Ryan." An awkward silence fell between us. He held out a familiar-looking envelope. "This month's payment," he said. I took it. He stood there for a moment, shifting his weight. "Listen," he said, finally meeting my eyes. I got my 1-year sobriety chip last week." "Congratulations," I said, and I meant it. "That's great." "Yeah," he said, a small, sad smile on his face. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, not just for the car or the money, for everything, for being a terrible brother. I'm really, truly sorry, Alex. It was the first honest, unconditional apology I had ever heard from him in my entire life. There were no excuses, no justifications, just regret. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, maybe for the first time. I didn't see the golden child anymore. I just saw a man trying to find his way back from the wreckage he had created. "I know," I said. "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness, not completely. It wasn't a promise that we'd be best friends again. It was just an acknowledgement, a start. And for now, it was enough. Ryan gave me a small nod, a flicker of relief in his eyes, and then he walked up to the counter to order his coffee. He didn't try to make more small talk. He didn't push for more. He understood, finally, that some things take time. Jenny arrived a few minutes later, and as we left, I saw him sitting alone at a table by the window, just quietly sipping his coffee, a man at peace with his own solitude. It was a start. The relationship with my parents is complicated. It's a work in progress. We don't do big family dinners anymore. The command performances are over. I see them on holidays for a few hours. The conversations are stilted, careful. My dad is quieter. He's still attending his anger management classes. He once managed a stiff, awkward apology, saying he could have handled things better. For him, that was the equivalent of a Shakespearean sonnet of remorse. My mom, through her therapy, has started to understand the meaning of boundaries. She calls, but she doesn't pry. She doesn't try to lay on the guilt. She's learning to have a relationship with the son I am, not the one she wished I would be. It's fragile. It's not perfect, but it's real. A few weeks after I saw Ryan at the coffee shop, a package arrived at my apartment. It was from him. Inside was a small, high-end car security system, complete with a new GPS tracker and a remote starter. There was a note attached, in his new, neater handwriting. It said, "So you never have to worry about who's behind the wheel again. Stay safe, Ryan." I had the system installed the next day. Sometimes, when I'm driving home from work in my Crown Vic, the late afternoon sun glinting off the hood, I think about that year. I think about how a family, a life, can look so perfect from the outside, but be rotting from the inside. And I think about how sometimes the only way to save something is to let it burn to the ground first. That car, that old decommissioned police cruiser, became the unlikely catalyst for it all. It was a symbol of my independence, and they couldn't stand it. Their attempts to take it from me, to control it, ended up costing them their own control, their own power. They didn't realize they weren't just fighting me for a car. They were fighting me for my self-respect. And that was a fight I was no longer willing to lose. I found my own power not by shouting louder or fighting dirtier, but by stepping outside their toxic game and using the rules of the real world. The world of consequences. The world of paperwork. The world where truth eventually has a way of coming to the surface. I didn't destroy my family. They held the match, and I simply refused to help them put out the fire they started. My peace didn't come from them changing. It came from me changing. It came from finding my own voice, and more importantly, learning when to let the cold, hard facts on a piece of paper speak for me. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it touched you in some way. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for the truth? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next.